Hi, I'm Sarah Patel and I'm a baby and toddler sleep expert. I help families get more sleep by using responsive strategies. All the strategies I use are based on up-to-date research and don't involve anything like cry it out. So the fourth trimester is the first 12 weeks after your baby's been born. It's usually a really special time, but it can be quite a difficult time, especially for your baby. Your baby's been in the womb for several months where they haven't had to feel hungry, hot or cold, and now they're in this new world where they have to get used to having their nappy put on, labels and clothes. They can feel too hot or cold, and they have to work really hard to feed. So we want to try and make that transition as easy as possible. So things like creating a bit of a womb-like environment. So you might dim down the lights, you might play some white noise. Most importantly, you're going to keep your baby nice and close. So round about here, lots of touch. And the research shows that this is really important because it actually grows your baby's brain, especially the social and emotional aspect of your brain, which we know is really important for mental health. So you don't need to worry about holding your baby too much because that's exactly what they need right now. So when it comes to safe sleeping, it's really helpful to think about sleep in terms of the night and the daytime. So nighttime sleep, it's really important to keep your baby in the same bedroom as you up until 6 months. And that's so that you can keep a close eye on her. Now, when they're going down for sleep during the night, you want to make sure that that mattress is firm and that it's flat, so your baby's not sinking into the mattress. When you put your baby down, you're going to put them down onto their back. And really important is that that space is completely clear, so you haven't got anything like toys, comforters, or teddies. When it comes to daytime sleep, most babies are going to want to sleep right here. And that's absolutely fine, but you want to make sure that it is safe sleep. So when it comes to daytime sleep, if your baby wants to contact that, you want to make sure that you are awake, so you can keep an eye on your baby, and that you're also upright, so that their airways are clear. Now, if you want to get out and about while your baby's sleeping and they want to be right here, then a sling or a carrier can be really helpful. Now, when it comes to safe sleep in a sling or a carrier, it can be helpful to think about the acronym TICS. So if we think about the T, it's that it's tight. So that is a well-fitted sling or carrier. And then the I is that your baby is in view. So you can see them. And then the C is that they are close to you, close enough to kiss. And then the K is that you want to keep their chin off your chest. So their head is going to be to one side. Newborns and young babies, you want to keep them facing in. And then the S is a supported back. So their back is supported by that carrier. You may also think about, is sleep safe in a car? Now, car seats aren't designed for sleeping. So you want to try and avoid your baby being in the car sleeping for too long, if possible. So if you're going on a really long journey, you want to try and have a few stops, get your baby out of that car seat. So when you arrive at your destination, even if your baby is still asleep, you want to make sure that you take your baby out of that car seat. So when thinking about what your baby is going to wear at night time, this can be quite stressful. But what I found really useful is to think about the advice that you want to be wearing one more layer than your baby. Now, ideally, you're aiming for the bedroom to be 16 to 20 degrees when they go to sleep. Newborns find it very difficult to regulate their body temperature. Their extremities, so their hands and their feet, will feel really cold. But if you take your 2 fingers and you check it down their chest or the back of their neck, you'll get a really good feel of what their core body temperature is like. Now, if they feel too cold, it's much safer to add a thin layer of clothing or an extra thin blanket. You want to avoid adding any thick blankets or thick clothing. So you can either have a blanket on your baby. Ideally, this is a breathable blanket. You want to make sure that it's really firmly tucked in around them, that it doesn't go above their shoulders. You may also think about having a sleeping bag. It's really important when choosing a sleeping bag that you read the guidelines on that specific sleeping bag. And that's because it's done by weight rather than age. And you want the sleeping bag to be tightly fitted so that it can't rise above your baby's head. So when it comes to thinking about how much sleep a newborn should get, a lot of parents will be really surprised by the answer. And it's something that I wish all parents knew before having a baby, is that some newborns will need as little as 9 hours in a 24-hour period, and some will need as much as 19 hours in a 24-hour period. So you can see that the range there is vast. And it's really good to know that some babies will be sleeping a lot during the day and night, which will be broken. But other babies will really surprise you. They'll be able to stay awake for a lot longer. Because the range is so vast, it's really important to focus on your baby rather than any generic schedule. Your baby may be the type of baby who will happily stay awake for longer periods. Or your baby may be the type of baby who wants to go to sleep after only being awake for 20 minutes. The most important thing is that you're reading your baby's signals and you're helping them to go to sleep. So you're going to be looking out for their particular sleepy signals. So they might start to stare off into the distance, go a bit slow. Newborns can actually pick up when they're really tired, so I'm going to listen out for those. They can also change the pigment underneath the eyebrow. And so once you see they're getting tired, you're going to help them fall asleep. And that's all that matters when it comes to thinking about how much sleep my baby needs. You're going to look out for those signals and help them fall asleep. So some babies will only be able to stay awake for a very short period of time, whereas others will be able to stay awake for a lot longer. What's important is that you focus on your baby's needs and you're watching out for their particular sleepy signals. So babies will start to stare off into the distance, they'll slow down their movements, they may start to hiccup, their pigment under the eyebrow can change. Once you see these signals, you want to support your baby to sleep. So most babies are going to need feeding or rocking. And that's what matters, that you are focusing on seeing their sleepy signals and then helping them to fall asleep. So when we're thinking about starting routines for a newborn, we're not thinking about getting into strict nap routines. We're thinking about creating routines that help make your baby feel safe and secure. So bedtime routine is really good for this, and you can start this right from the outset. The most important thing about your bedtime routine is that it's simple and short. Newborns get overstimulated and overtired really quickly. So it might be as simple as changing their nappy, putting them into some pajamas, feeding them till they're asleep, winding them, and perhaps putting some white noise on. And you're going to do that consistently each night to help them fall asleep feeling safe and secure. Also, it could be handy to think about having a consistent wake-up time for the day and a consistent bedtime. But it's useful to know that your baby's internal body clock, so their circadian rhythm, it doesn't start to regulate until around about 4 to 5 months of age. So when your baby gets to that age, it's worth having a consistent wake-up time for the day. When it comes to bedtime, it's only going to be loosely consistent, and that's because it will depend on their last nap of the day. So when will my newborn start sleeping through the night? This is the question that all parents will ask. And it's a really difficult one to answer. But when we think about the answer, it's important to know that sleeping through at this age means sleeping for 5 hours consecutively after midnight. And so some babies will do this really early on, from a few weeks. We tend to refer to those babies as unicorn babies. It's nothing that their parents have done, they've just naturally fallen into that rhythm. But most babies are going to wake every 2 to 3 hours. They may wake more frequently than that. This is because they've got really small tummies and they need a lot of comfort. But just know that that period of sleep, it will extend as they get older. It's important to know sleep won't progress in a linear manner. It tends to do this. And so you'll get a period of really good sleep, and then there'll be a period where it's a little bit challenging, and then it will go back to being good again. So sleep will always be moving forward, but there will always be peaks and troughs along the way. The witching hour is a period of time where your baby really struggles. They'll be really quite grumpy, they'll find life generally difficult. Now, it tends to happen in the early hours of the evening, so maybe around 5 o'clock, and you'll need to give them an awful lot of support. So this is when skin to skin can be really helpful. So you're getting your baby nice and close, they can feel your heartbeat, they can feel the rhythm of your breathing, and that's going to help with the oxytocin, it's going to help with the calming down. You'll probably find this time really stressful, but my advice to you is make sure you're at home, make sure you can keep your baby close, and know that they are going to be quite upset for probably a couple of hours. You're not doing anything wrong, and it's about using all of those different tools, keeping your baby close, feeding them, rocking them, moving up and down. So there are lots of different things you can do to help calm your baby down, but it's important to know that you're probably going to use all of them several times, and you're not doing anything wrong. It's really normal for your baby to feel like this at this time. So you might do some skin to skin, you might have a bath together, you might do lots of feeding, and you might do lots of rocking and bouncing. And all of those things are going to help to calm your baby down. So each baby will have an individual sensitivity. And so some babies love to be rocked and bounced, some babies love to be nice and close. And you may find that one day you think, yeah, I've cracked it and the cluster feeding is really working, but then the next day it doesn't work. That's really normal, and it's just about trying another strategy. So daytime naps are really important, and they're something that support nighttime sleep. So when it comes to napping, the most important thing you can do is get to know your baby's individual needs. Now, babies will need a lot of support to fall asleep. Parents are often surprised by this, but most babies will need to be fed to sleep or rocked to sleep, or they may need both of these things. Now, what's important with these naps is that they suit your particular baby. So some babies will wake up and they'll need a nap very quickly after they've been awake for maybe 20 minutes. Another baby will be able to be awake for a couple of hours, and then they'll take their nap. What's important is that your baby's having naps when they need them, and that if they need help to fall asleep, you're going to help them. But also, if they're having a nap and they wake up after 10, 15 minutes, and they're really upset, you can support them back to falling asleep. It's not important that you need to have 2-hour naps, 30-minute naps. The length of time of that nap is about suiting your baby's individual needs. So if they have a 15-minute nap and they wake up and they're really happy, that suits their needs. And that means that we're suiting our baby's individual needs for nighttime sleep. So if we're having naps that suit our baby, it means that they're going to be going to sleep not overtired, because an overtired baby can get very upset, and it means sleep is much harder. What might come as a shock to parents is that newborns are actually really noisy sleepers. Now, they spend a lot of their sleep in active sleep, which means that they move around an awful lot when they're sleeping, which can be surprising because we tend to think of newborns as sleeping peacefully and quietly, when actually they tend to make a lot of noises when they're sleeping. They may whimper, they may cry out, there may be some gurgling, some coughs or sneezes. Newborns are born with really small airway passages, and these can quickly get irritated if they're dry or there's extra mucus, which can mean that your baby may be snoring softly. This is generally considered normal, but if you are worried at all, do seek medical advice. So lots of people think about swaddling their baby, and it's really worth considering before you do it. There are lots of different ways of doing it. What's important is if you decide to try swaddling, some babies love it, some babies hate it. If it works for your baby, you want to make sure you've got a breathable cloth to use, that you're not swaddling your baby above the shoulders, and that if you are bed sharing, they come out of their swaddle whilst they're bed sharing with you. So the 4-month regression is something that a lot of parents worry about. Now, we actually refer to it as the 4-month progression, and that's because sleep is always moving forward, and you can't lose a skill in sleep. It's always going to get better, but around the 3 to 4 month mark, your baby will go through some changes. Their sleep cycle will start to mature, and it acts a bit more like an adult sleep cycle. So instead of going straight into a deep sleep, they're going to go into a light stage of sleep and then a deep sleep. Now, some babies don't even notice this change. For other babies, they find it incredibly difficult. So both of my babies found it really difficult and they woke up very frequently overnight. So when it comes to the 4-month sleep progression, it can be really challenging for you as a parent because you'll be getting really little sleep. And to try and compensate for that as much as possible, go to bed early if you can, have a lie-in if you can, or even take a 5 or 10 minute nap during the day. Also think about getting outside because it will not only help you, it will help your baby, it will help with their circadian rhythms, their internal body clock. The daylight helps you feel better as well when you're sleep deprived. When it comes to your baby, know that they are going through a really difficult time. So this is not the time to remove any kind of sleep support. It's actually the time they're going to need even more support. It can be a really challenging time, but know that it's just a phase and they will come out of it and sleep will get better. So one of my top tips for you is to really hone in on your own instincts. The research shows that parents may not feel like they know what they're doing, but actually when they trust their instincts, that's the most important thing that they can do. Trust your instincts and trust your baby to show you when they need support to fall asleep.